Hey guys, Bill Sieglein here with CISO Executive Network, continuing on with our series talking with CEOs and founders of cybersecurity companies. Today, we're very excited to talk to Brendan O'Connor. He's the founder and CEO of AppOmni. Brendan, in some ways, I feel privileged because we sat on a couch together at RSA many years ago. I'll never forget that. I think Andy Land was with me. We sat on that couch and you said, "Listen, I got to tell you guys, I'm so eager to get started on this thing." And you sort of just whispered it to us, and we were like, "Oh my God, this is brilliant. Run with it." So we'll take all the credit. We're nudging you over the edge. No, it was, we knew it was, you were off to a great start. And so congratulations on that. I ask all of our interviewees the same question, and I start with what kind of inspired you to get started in this space with that particular thing and the thing you're doing now? What was that inspiration?
Well, thanks for the interview, Bill. Great to see you again, as always. We've been friends for a long time. And, my inspiration came from my experience as a practitioner. There's not a lot of CISOs that then become founders. What we tend to see is there's a lot of startups that are, built to be bought, or someone who does it again and again, a serial entrepreneur. At AppOmni, this is a labor of love. So I was a CISO. I started as a security engineer. My entire career, I was a security engineer. I carried a pager. I fought incidents. And I was at Salesforce for 10 years. First half of my career as the VP of product security, and then the second half as the CISO. And then I went over to ServiceNow, where I was CTO of their security business. So it comes from me being inside the SaaS companies and me being on the bleeding edge of SaaS adoption and having to defend an enterprise that was purely in the cloud when most organizations were just starting to dip their toes into the water. But the companies that I came from, Salesforce and ServiceNow, were pure cloud. So I had to deal with the problem first as a practitioner. And I understood that, at a time when all of our data was moving to the cloud, so many of our tools and technologies were still pointed at the ground. They were endpoint centric, they were network centric. And people think of cloud somewhat as almost exclusively infrastructure, IaaS, infrastructure as a service, but SaaS is really the number one way businesses consume cloud. It's just spread across 100 plus different vendors. There's, I think, 76 public SaaS companies just traded in the US markets. And there's thousands of private SaaS companies. So SaaS is eating the world, and it's not just three vendors like Amazon, Microsoft, and Google. So we knew that CISOs were going to have all of these different SaaS estates. They would have some Salesforce and some GitHub and Microsoft or G Suite. They would have ServiceNow and Workday, Oracle, SAP. All these business applications that power their enterprise were going from on-prem to the cloud, or they were born in the cloud. And we knew it was a matter of time before every security leader and every CISO would have to say, we need something that's managing, monitoring, and tying all this together, like I do my endpoints. So I viewed SaaS as the new OS of business, and that more and more we would see workloads move from off the endpoint and into the browser, where it's accessing in the cloud. And so it was the best idea I've ever had, maybe other than marrying my wife, is the best idea I ever had. And I just had a burden for this problem. And I knew, like, I know this market. I understand the problem better than other people do. This is a way that I can really lean in with my expertise and help and build something of value. As a CISO, I hated vaporware products and vendors that overpromised and underdelivered, as we all do. And I just thought, like, we can overdeliver on this. We understand this market. We have something unique to offer. And that's where the journey came from. It was a labor of love, and it was coming, from my experience of running security at two of the three largest SaaS providers in the world.
Yeah, I mean, you had that foresight. You saw it coming because you already had that pain. So, and I think your background was perfect for it. Those two extensive stints with those two companies really led you to this. I love that quote. Um, SaaS is the OS of business, and it's so true. I mean, we're in a series right now where we're talking about controlling your environment when the perimeter's gone. And what are the
Yes.
solutions you're looking at? And everybody talks about all their SaaS providers. That's where the perimeter has gone. It's moved out there. So you're all over it. And we're excited, by the way. We'll see a lot of your folks at our roundtables. I think you'll be presenting a few times in our series on the
I'll
SPM.
try to make it every time that I can. I can't promise all of them, but
Oh, I
I'll
know you're so
go out for
busy.
you when we can.
Well, we're excited to see you guys, and thanks for that. So what makes this solution so unique? I mean, there's way too many security vendors in this space, 4,700 and counting. Every day a new one pops up. What makes it unique?
What SaaS is unique from other forms of cloud, and part of it is this is my thesis from when we started the company. So much of our technology, it looks at protecting at the OS level or the network level. So when you
Mhm.
think about whether it's CNAP or it's IaaS or it's something on the endpoint, you're looking at what processes are running, what their privileges are, is something using too much memory or calling into storage. There's a lot of OS centric activity and controls. That layer doesn't exist in SaaS.
Oh,
The
right.
SaaS abstraction layer sits above that. They don't allow you to install onto the OS of the SaaS provider. So you can't really dip into the OS, and all of those areas in the control plane where we plug in just aren't there. And the same is true of the network. So if you're running a VPC in Amazon, it's not quite the same as running on-prem, but you still get NetFlow. You can still see east-west movement. You still have
Yeah.
the notion of a firewall. But if you go look at SaaS, they don't let you dip into the network. The way the SaaS providers deliver the service is they horizontally scale those workloads across their customer base. So the two fundamental places where we plug in the network layer and the OS layer, they don't exist in SaaS. So you can't take your existing tools and lift and shift. You had to have a completely new approach in how you do that. I like to talk about if you're going from, say, America to Europe, you think, oh, well, all my electronics will still work. I just need a voltage converter. You know that the voltage is different there, but you still think that your electronics are going to work well when you go to a foreign country. I explain it like you get there and you find out, wait a second, there's not even a power plug. It's not a voltage converter problem. It's not a lift and shift. The plug simply isn't there. So we built this company from the ground up only to deal with SaaS and to know that the bedrock on SaaS had raised and that those tools and approaches that we use to secure so many other areas of our network and our information estates, it simply wasn't there in SaaS. So we built for that new bedrock, and that's one of the key ways that we're different.
I think so too. Yeah, that's great. I love that approach. I mentioned just a moment ago, 4,700 plus vendors in the cybersecurity space. How do you cut through the noise, right? What gets the attention of the potential customer?
I say having a successful startup is the Olympics of work. So we are in the Olympics of work and we're going for the gold medal. So we're the leader in this industry, but it's hard. And you compete against people with bigger budgets. You compete against people with larger sales teams. You compete against vendors that, try and grow through acquisition and say, yeah, we have one too. We'll wrap it into your existing contract. But, our thesis is security people are trying to do the right thing. Security leaders usually have a calling. They want to protect people. They're good guys. They view themselves as, hey, I have a responsibility to protect my company and my customers and that data. And they want the best product. They can't always afford the best product, but there's always a market for number one. So, I live in California now, but I grew up in Missouri, or Missouri as we call it back home. It's the show me state.
Right?
The state motto is talk is cheap, show me. So
Love
that's what
it.
we do. We show customers. We will run side by side. We won't just tell you why we're the best. We show you why we're the best. And so the best sales motion that we have is I ask folks to take the Pepsi challenge. Try it, see if you like it. And what usually ends up happening is the POC itself will open their eyes so much to what they didn't know that they didn't know that it then becomes a pretty easy sales process after that. But the hard part is getting the attention and getting your foot in the door.
Hmm.
So I think reputation obviously is key. If people don't trust you, they won't do business with you. You got to be a high integrity person and you have to have a high integrity product. You got to know that you're really legit solving a problem because there's so much vaporware out there and there's so many big promises with disappointing results. So it's difficult, but it's also kind of old fashioned. Like you get up, you lace on your shoes every day and you get out there and you train for the Olympics of work.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, and I love the idea of show me. I'll show you. I put this in side by side with anything, and I'll prove it. Good for you for such strong belief in your solution, and I always knew you'd be that way. So, can you share a case study? Obviously, you probably don't want to use a client name unless they've approved it, but is there a case where you could share we've really helped save a client this way?
How much time you got?
I'm sure you've had
I
many
mean,
of them.
still many of our POCs, over 80% of them, we're finding a smoking gun, where we're finding something that was like, is this real? Ooh, yes, it's real. But I'll tell you one story. So we were plugging into an M365 environment. This is a Fortune 100 company, very large company, household name. And we plugged into their M365. And as we were plugging in, we started to see all of this anomalous activity in SharePoint. And what had happened is they had a former employee whose account had been deprovisioned, but was not happy, had an axe to grind, and they had some SharePoint sites that were publicly exposed, and they also had local M365 accounts.
Mm.
And this person who had left the team had the password to one of those local accounts. So even though they had shut off their corporate account, they still had access to a local M365 account. So there was a configuration problem where single factor was allowed for local accounts. There was an IP restriction problem where these SharePoint sites were not properly hidden. Most of them were, but some of them were exposed. And then they had an identity and access management problem where this local account in M365 had access to the corporate OneDrive. So you have an attacker who's coming in across the public internet, single factor, local account, and was just dumping their corporate OneDrive. And the client says to us, "Are you guys doing this? Are you trying to be flashy for the
Right.
POC?" Like, "No, this is real.
Right. This is
Like,
happening live right now.
let's stop POC and go into IR mode. We'll help you, but you need to stop what you're doing and go fix this. This is real." After that, it became an easy sale. They
I
signed up for a
bet.
year contract.
Outstanding. That's a great case, right? It's just the proof's in the pudding. And so good for you for making it so easy to adapt with the technology. You knew this question was going to come as AI is just everywhere in the last year. Many people probably ask you, are you using AI to make your product better? Or are you protecting AI, right? So you may be doing both. What are your thoughts?
We do both. So AI is just another SaaS app when you think about
Right.
it.
It
So
is.
one of the things right now is we have a lot of our customers, especially regulated companies or public companies, they want AI governance. They're worried
Mhm.
about whether it's GPT or DeepSeek or whatever it may be. They're worried about some user in their enterprise with good intentions plugging AI into a production system in SaaS. And once that large language model pulls down your data, you can't force it to forget. It's a one-way door. And I talk to a lot of CISOs, CIOs, and even chief legal officers that are scared about, I'm worried that a good intentioned employee is going to plug in something they shouldn't. Suddenly I have a regulatory issue or I have a data breach because PII that DeepSeek wasn't supposed to have, it now has access to across the public internet. So to us, AI is just a special flavor of SaaS app. And we're able to give you governance, policies, controls to prevent or safely allow it into certain environments and make sure that it's not getting access to that SaaS data that it shouldn't. Also, you have the SaaS providers themselves coming out with AI. And we know that these cloud providers love to turn things on by default, whether you like it or not. So we also have a use case where people want to know, hey, if my providers just start flipping AI on everywhere, I want to know about it. And
Yeah.
maybe I want to have a policy that we turn it off, or it has to
Mhm.
go through testing and governance before we can use it, especially if we're talking about PII or healthcare or financial data or sensitive data. And of course, we use AI within AppOmni. I feel like if you're not using AI, you're doing it wrong at this point.
No.
To me, it's AI is like going from a hatchet to a chainsaw. You just, when you have a power tool at the hands of a skilled worker, they can just get so much more done. So, as I mentioned, we support half of the Fortune 10. So we have over 2 billion unique SaaS events per day. We have the highest pure SaaS data set on the planet. We have our AI looking over that and finding attack patterns and surfacing that to our clients. And we're able to deliver next generation threat detection and threat intel that no one else on the market can deliver right now. And it's because we have so much data. And with AI combing through all those events, we can see, wait a second, 5 financial services companies just had this weird thing happen. And these are all different companies in different geos. The only thing they have in common is that they're banks. We think there's something wrong there. And that would take a human analyst a really long time to find. We're spending a lot of time doing hunting, whereas our AI is going to be able to find that immediately.
Yeah.
The other cool thing that we do is these controls are complex. You got 6,000 controls in M365 alone. You can't be an expert on all of them. Our AI can explain to you not only the problem, but exactly what the solution is, or give you multiple ways to create compensating controls. If you do these things, it'll stop that. If you do this, it's a compensating control. So making everyone in security feel like now they're an expert in all of these business applications across their enterprise.
Yeah, we get a lot of that from our members is that, 365, the security controls are so complicated, they change too often and I'm never sure if I'm really keeping it as secure as it should be. Yeah, interesting. Those are such great uses of AI, and I love the way you explained how AI is really just SaaS. And the other thing you mentioned, I think that members find very interesting is I don't know what my SaaS is doing, all of my SaaS partners. I have no idea how much AI they're using in the background. And I haven't authorized them to do that. If I could catch them doing it, I could say, I know you're using it. So that's good that you can find that. Well, we get to our last question, and it is advice to one of your comrades who might decide to jump both feet in like you did. Somebody who says, I want to jump into the cybersecurity market. What advice would you give to that person who says, I'm getting in the cyber market. I'm gonna be a venture guy and jump in.
You know, take the leap, take it with conviction. You need to have conviction that you're solving a problem and that you have something unique to say. 99% of startups don't make it. So you need to know, yeah, almost have to have an irrational confidence that like, no, I know what I'm talking about. And that was my confidence in AppOmni. I didn't know that I could solve every security problem in the world, but I knew I could solve this one. We were uniquely qualified to go after this problem, and we had something to say. We had a product that we knew would deliver value. We had a solution that we knew customers were going to need. Whether they knew it or not, we just had that conviction people are going to need this. And now I don't see a future where within a couple of years, every company in the world doesn't have something managing and monitoring the security of all their SaaS applications. But you got to have that conviction, that belief in yourself. I would also say like it's way harder than you think it is. It's way harder than you think it's going to be. It is the Olympics of work, and it's hard. And you just got to have that discipline to get up every single day and train. Like you're training for the Olympics, you got to put in the work day in, day out. And the last thing I'll say is there's one thing that every successful startup has in common. They didn't quit.
Yeah.
Can't quit. This is not for the timid. This is not for people that give up easily. It's difficult, and some days you have the highest highs, other days you have the lowest lows. Sometimes it happens on the same day.
Yep.
It can start off great and you have a terrible afternoon, or vice versa. But you got to have that belief that what you're doing matters, and then you got to have the discipline and the ability to just go after it every single day. And if you do, good things will happen. And so it was difficult over the pandemic. There was a lot of uncertainty. Budgets were closed. We were wondering if we were even going to make it. And now we've come out the other side a few years later, and now we're growing like wildfire. We're the biggest solution in this space. We were more successful than I could have hoped, but there was a lot of times when it looked dark, or are we going to make it? Are we going to make it to the next week, to the next quarter? And you just got to keep going. So, I mean,
Yeah.
it kind of seems silly, but yeah, keep going.
It's good advice. Yeah. And I'm sure folks watching this video will take note on that. Well, listen, you have been tremendously successful, and I'm proud to say that I'm a friend and a colleague, and we're pleased to have you on this series. And we're very excited that we'll see you and some of your team presenting at our series on the SPM marketplace. You guys are clearly dominant. So congratulations on everything that you've done, and enjoy your time on the slopes tomorrow.
Thanks so much, Bill. I
All right.
appreciate
Be
it.
well.
See you, buddy.